Hi, how are we doing? Still filming on my phone for those who want to know how I'm doing. Not great, therefore. And I did read a shitload in July, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I generally don't know how I did it. I would love to tell you. I don't know, I was a reading machine in July, and now I kind of feel a bit, not burned out, but I'm just like not feeling the need to read right now. And that's kind of sad, but I do think I overdid it a little bit in July. But let's get into our stats. I read 17 books this month, like I said, a lot, which amounts to 5,746 pages, which is an average of 238 pages per book, and an average of 185.35 pages per day. 5 of those were rereads, and I have 1 DNF. Then for format, we have 8 books I physically own, 2 ebooks, 4 galleys from NetGalley, and 3 library books. For star rating, I love these stats because they're great. I have 1 1 star, 2 2 stars, 1 3 star, 6 4 stars, and here's the kicker, 7 5 stars, and an average rating of a 3.95. Now for age range, we have 9 YA books, 1 new adult book, and 7 adult books. And for genre, we have 8 graphic novels, 4 contemporaries, 1 fantasy, 1 horror, 2 historical fictions, and 1 paranormal. And yeah, let's just delve into things. Starting off with Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman, which I gave 5 stars to, and is a reread. This is the first book in a series. Spoiler alert, I read this entire series this month, anticipation for the new one and the last one that came out. This is the first book, and this one will always have a special place in my heart. I feel like it's just so wholesome and so precious, and it has over the years just meant a lot to me, and it still does. And I do highly recommend checking this out if you want to, if you think you might have missed out on the hype. I still really recommend the series. Then next I read Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman, which I also gave out of 5 stars to, and is another reread. This one I also really enjoy. I feel like in the past I really related to Nick in this volume, and like luckily I've kind of like grown out of that, but therefore again it keeps holding a special place in my heart. But like this is also like the start of the relationship. The first volume is more so like them questioning each other. This one is really the starting point of the relationship, and I think that's also really cute to see as well. And of course I also read Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman, which gave 5 stars to another reread. This one is the one where they go to Paris, and I really like that. It also delves more into the cast of side characters because of that, and I love this friend group so much, and I just love how much of it we get to see in this volume. It also is the start of really getting into Charlie's mental health struggles, and I think that's really well done as well. Then we have Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman, which I also gave 5 stars to, another reread. And this is probably my favorite in the series. It's the one where it's the emotionally heaviest one. It's the one that makes me cry the entire way through. It's really delves into Charlie's mental health in this one, but I think it does a great job, and of course seriously discussing those topics while also kind of keeping the lighthearted and hopeful tone of the entire series. And I feel like that approach to talking about mental health is very unique. I don't think I've ever seen it in the way I've seen it done in this series, and I just really like it. Then next we have Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman, which I give 5 stars to, is another reread. I always feel like Volume 4 is like so heavy emotionally, and then this one always feels a little bit like a letdown after that, but like it's still a 5 star. Like it's still really good. It's very much focused on the healing part of things, and I really like that. It also has Nick kind of struggling with what he wants to do in uni, which I also think is really interesting. And of course what we all did this for, Heartstopper Volume 6 by Alice Oseman, which I gave 5 stars to. This came out this month, and is the whole reason why I reread the series. I don't really need to. I feel like I definitely remembered it enough. I've reread the series quite a few times now, so it wasn't necessary, but I just really wanted to, and I really am glad I did that, because this volume just does a great job at just making everything feel full circle to show just how much these characters have grown. And I really like that aspect of this book. Like I cried throughout this, and not sad tears as in Volume 4, but like very happy tears and just proud moments to see just how much these characters have grown over these 6 volumes. And then next I read The Dare by Elle Kennedy, which I gave 1 out of 5 stars to. Sadly enough, I've been slowly making my way through kind of like the off-campus universe about Elle Kennedy after really loving the show. And it's always been very hit or miss for me, don't get me wrong, but this one did me dirty. Like, I did not expect a 1 star. This is our last book in the You series, which is the first spin-off, and this one I really was not a fan of. I didn't like either of the main characters. I feel like their like personal issues just felt very self-inflicted, which was really annoying to read. I also didn't really like the romance. I thought it was very underdeveloped and very like sex-based, which I personally prefer a bit more emotional development on that front. And then I also just feel like it was extremely misogynistic. I feel like Elle Kennedy always has a little bit of misogyny in the mix, but in this book it was like atrociously bad. I of course did not enjoy that. I also just think the main character is plus size and she's insecure about her body, and the way that's dealt with was just very icky to me. I don't think it was dealt with very well. Then I read How to Make Friends with a Dog by Kathleen Glasgow, which I gave 2 to 5 stars to, and this deeply saddened me because before this, I had only adored Kathleen Glasgow's books. She writes YA, hardcore, and contemporary books, and the other 2 books I read by her, I loved, but they broke my heart since typically I take a really long break in between her books to just like get emotionally prepared again. And I was finally in that mood again, and then this book just did not do it for me at all. This one is about a girl who loses her mother, and I don't really love the way it was dealt with, mainly because of our main character. I feel like she read just extremely immature, which was not fun to read, but then also within her grief, and like I hate to say this because of course she did lose her mom, but I feel like it read very woe is me, kind of like she's the only person something bad has ever happened to, even though in this book she's constantly confronted with people who arguably went through worse. That just was really annoying to read. And then on top of that, I also just think plot-wise there were a couple of inconsistencies and things that didn't make the most sense. I don't know, I didn't hate this book. I did think it had some good things to say and some elements of it that I did quite like, but overall I just don't think this was that well executed in my opinion. Then next I read Innamorata by Ava Reid, which I give 2 to 5 stars to. This is a difficult one to review because I actually quite liked this book in the first half, and it had some basic issues for me, but overall I thought the world was very interesting, very unique. I thought the atmosphere was out of this world. It was so well done, and the plot was very intriguing. I did think the romance was very insta-love, just really underdeveloped, but for the rest I was like intrigued to see where things went. And then about halfway through the book something happens that already feels extremely out of character, but after that this book just turns into something completely different. It kind of removed everything I liked about this book and just turned it into like very generic fantasy, and almost nothing happened and the characters became insufferable, and again the romance was just so poorly developed, and I just did not have a good time. I only saw it through to the end because of how much I liked the first half, but that second half was bad. Then next I read Mr. Magic, the graphic novel by Kiersten White, adapted by Scott Peterson and illustrated by Veronica Fish and Andy Fish. I gave this 5 stars, and it is Egali I got from Nagali. I read Mr. Magic when that first came out, the novel version, and I liked the concept, and but I wasn't obsessed with the execution of it. I believe I gave it 3 stars, so it's not like I disliked it at all, but there were just, especially towards the end, some things that I didn't really vibe with, and I definitely feel like the graphic novel format fixed all of those issues for me. There's still some parts that I didn't love. Obviously it's a 4-star, but I did think having the visuals just helped just kind of make sense of everything a bit more. I also feel like they tightened up the plot a bit more, and I don't know, I was so sucked into this while reading it. I also really liked the art, so I feel like it fit the story really well. Then next I read Fence Book 1 by C.S. Pacat and Johanna the Mad, which I gave 5 stars together from Nagali. This isn't coming out until September though, so stay tuned, but I felt okay reading it this early because this is a bind up of like the first few volumes of the graphic novel series, which was popular a couple of years ago, and I've always been curious about it. So when I saw this on Nagali, I requested it, and I'm really glad I did because I did really enjoy this. I will say I'm not as obsessed over it as some people seem to be when this was first being published, but I did quite like it. And it's wild because at first I was like, I don't know if I'm into this, but then like by the ending I just realized just how invested into these characters that I got. My only issue with it is that I wasn't the biggest fan of Jared Style. It's not ugly, but I just had a really hard time establishing characters sometimes. Then I read Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle, which I gave 5 stars to, and this was a blast. I'm not the biggest horror reader, which you might know if you follow me around, and I've heard a lot of great things about this book, so I was curious to check it out, especially with that title. I had a blast reading this. I thought it was a lot of fun. Also, like generally had some gory moments and had some tense moments, and I was generally really at the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading this book. And also it had some great commentary on Hollywood, and yeah, I do feel like I could have used a little bit more depth on especially the main character, because he was such a driving force for the entire story. Then next I read the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, Volume 1 by Beth Brower, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to. This was kind of a book that I picked up completely on impulse. This is a series that just for some reason the past couple of months have been absolutely dominated my feed. Like, everybody has been reading and loving this series, and I don't know who started it, where it came from, I don't care, but I saw it a lot. And when I was on vacation, I saw the first 2 books of the series in like a little binder packet at the bookstore, and I was like, I've heard so many great things about those 2 books for this price. Like, the price of normally 1 book is a steal. They're also really short, so like it is deservedly, but I was like, there's no reason not to pick up this book. I did, and then I just kind of started reading it, which was our plan. I'm really glad I did, because I had so much fun reading this book. I totally get where the hype is from, because this is so short, nothing happens in this. It's literally just the diary of Emma M. Lyon, and I just had such a delightful time. I could not stop reading this book. It did not let me go a single second. It was so captivating, and I think a big part of that is the character of Emma, because of course it is a diary, so it's like fully and like her writing and her voice. Just, I think that character is so witty, so charming, and it's just a delight to read from her perspective, and I just loved reading it so much. And the way also even the cast of side characters, like the small town that she lives in, is brought to life in this. I thought was great, and I just had a really good time reading this. And next I read just a Highland Fling by Naina Kumar, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars to as a Gallica from Nagali. I will say here, just very quickly, that I did a July new releases vlog. The footage is still on my iPad, so I can't edit that right now. Because obviously I'm filming on my phone because I can charge my iPad, but because I can charge my iPad, I also can transfer those clips to my phone, so I can still edit it. So I don't know when you're gonna see that video, but I did a July new releases vlog. This is a book I read for it. I absolutely loved it. I read Naina Kumar's release last year, and it ended up being one of my favorite books from last year. I loved it so much. I was so excited for this release, and I think I liked it more. I really love this book. I thought it was a great romance story. The chemistry between the main character and the love interest was off the charts. It's also a fun road trip story, and I really like that element to the book. But I think its shining star for me, especially in this book, is around the main character and the difficult relationship with her dad, and kind of the healing around that throughout this novel. I thought it was so well done, and I again cried my way through this book, especially the second half, because that's where we really delve into that. It's so well done. Then I also read, of course, the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, Volume 2 by Beth Brower, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to, and I'm actively pissed off that I don't have Volume 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 as well, but maybe it's a good thing, so I can pace myself. But I really enjoyed this one. I like this more than the first volume. It's just barely not a 5 star, I need you to know that, but this one has more plot, still not plot heavy, but it has like a little subplot going on in it. That was really fun. And then we have a bit more of an expansion of the side cast, and I love the new characters we got introduced to so much. And we also are getting the like little inklings of maybe a romance storyline coming along somewhere. There's several options right now. I ship them all. I don't care. And then next I read Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars to. As I said, I was finally like in the mood again for Kathleen Glasgow and like how to make friends with a dog and deliver that for me. So I was hoping this final book by her that I hadn't read yet would do that. And it kind of did. This is a difficult one to review because this book is split into 3 parts, and my feelings on each part is so different. I really liked the first part. I thought it was very interesting. It was a different perspective from what I expected this book to start in on, but I thought it was interesting. I liked the cast of side characters surrounding that, and I feel like we were going such an interesting route. And then part 2 happens, and that part is the biggest part of this book, and I thought it was so boring. I didn't think it was great at all. It just almost nothing happened in it, and then what happened in it just kind of felt like we were centering this girl's mental health journey on men, which just also disturbed me because I believe she's 16 in this book. No, 17. She's 17 in this book, and the 2 guys that kind of act as love interest in this book, one is 27 and then the other is like 20, I believe, only a few years older, but like still giving me a bit of the ick. I feel like that those age gaps just weren't addressed properly. And then the last part of this book, which did finally like properly focus on the healing of things, that was incredible. That made me sob. That made me remember why I love Kathleen Glasgow books, and it just kind of made me hate that middle part even more, because it was like, if you didn't suck, this could have been her best book. Then next I read Not That Kind of Proposal by Victoria Levine, which I sadly enough DNF'd at 26% of the way through. Is a gala from Nagali, and I truly mean it when I say sadly enough I DNF'd this, because this one sounded so up my alley and I was so excited to read it, but it just did not work for me. I hated the main characters so much. Like, talk about incel love, just first of all, but also just the way he was kind of like low-key obsessive over her. Just, I don't know, it grossed me out. I didn't like it. It just, you know, in a romance, I do like a guy that's down bad, don't get me wrong, but this man was just pathetic. I did not like it. And I also just feel like the dialogue between the two main characters just felt so cringy, and there was like I remember like one particular text conversation that just made my brain go, nope, you're not doing this, you're not subjecting yourself to this anymore. And then lastly, for July, I read Die For Me by Shirlene Obuobi, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars in the Galleria from Nagalia. This book, incredible. Highly recommend this one, honestly. I feel like throughout so much of this book, I didn't know this was going the romance route or the horror route, even though this was pitched to me as a romance. I didn't know, because this book was just doing both so effectively, where just one moment I was feeling so anxious and like on the edge of my seat, and I didn't know what was gonna happen, and I felt like I had to put the book down to be able to kind of like calm myself a little bit, because my anxiety was just peaking a little bit too high. But then like also I wanted to keep reading, and then like the other moment I was like swooning at how the romance was just incredible. Like the chemistry between the lead and the love interest was just so well done, and like their scenes together was just amazing, and it did that without giving me emotional whiplash. I feel like oftentimes some books try to balance these completely opposite feelings in a way. It kind of always makes me go like, huh, what are we doing? This one didn't. It just effortlessly floats between those two very different moods, and I thought it was doing such an incredible job, and I was so invested. I really liked the main character. I even really liked the love interest, as much as I was also terrified of him. But then the ending didn't quite work for me. I feel like when we get to the ending, kind of a antagonist get introduced, and I feel like the motivations for that character weren't the most clear, which made it hard for me to get really invested in that storyline, to feel the stakes of that storyline. And I also think the resolution to it just felt so easy, which even like the very minimal stakes I felt just dropped completely, because like, oh, we could have done this all along. Okay, it's that simple. Therefore, like the ending didn't probably work for me, but like the rest of this book is so good. And yeah, that's everything I have for July. Like I said, it was a lot. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely had a great time in July. You can tell by all the high ratings. Like, I can't believe that. I feel like I've had such a like sucky reading year, rating wise. Like this month was just phenomenal, like in the amount but also in like the quality. So that's great. Let's carry on this vibe till August, because I need it, and I also need to get reading again. I haven't read in like a week, so it needs to happen again. But yeah. Let me know in the comments if you thought of these books, if you read them, as well as what books you read in July, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye. Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated? Should've played it cool instead of made it